What's up, Hippo lovers? Every one of you knows if you want to play RTS competitively, you need to use your mouse and your keyboard. But the big question is, how do I properly use the keyboard and how do I set up my hotkeys? And that's what we are trying to figure out in this very video. Rule number one, everything that I say is relative, because the most important thing is that you like the hotkeys. And I can only give you guidelines, I can give you ideas, how you could set them up, what you have to think about if you set them up. But in the end, the best hotkeys are the ones that are fitting for you. For example, I took a break of Age of Empires, played a lot of Counter-Strike, and therefore my fingers were always over WASD, QE, and the numbers. So yeah, that's basically when I jumped back to Age of Empires and set up my hotkeys. That's what I was thinking about, and that's why you will see my hand always in that area, which I believe to be good, because you're closer to the numbers that you want to use anyways. That brings us to easy to access keys. I see people sometimes using like Control L, some important buildings on P, or for example Doubt till like 2017 still had dock on Control D, a hotkey that you really want to spam. That's not great. You want to prioritize and hotkeys that you want to use very often, such as TCs, such as building villagers, such as idle villagers. They should really be accessible, and always a single key, never a combination. Never try to go Control Alt and T for idle villager or something. It has to be something very easy, and also don't have any overlapping commands. Later on I will show you what I mean with that. For example, if you build a house with B and E, but you also select your barracks with E, that means you can never select the barracks if you also have a villager selected at the same time, and that kind of screws up, yeah, your hotkey efficiency quite a bit. And after I changed my hotkeys heavily after NAC2, I used so many hours to get used to them, and I wouldn't be surprised if it took me like 100 games till I was at 99% again hotkey wise. So obviously you misclick a lot. If you change them, what I like is just to prepare a paper and just put them under the screen, and every time you want to like produce an archer, go to it and take a look at it. So let's take a look, general ideas of how I personally do set up my hotkeys, and maybe something that you can take away. Yellow will be my row of select buildings, so therefore that's the moment where we simply jump onto the buildings. So A, for example, is select the Archery Range, and then E is produce a skirmisher. So now you can see how I put my hand. I actually thought about putting a hand there, but it always looked so creepy. I couldn't really find a reasonable file that wasn't like so bad. So let's take a look into what exactly I mean. Let's take a look at what buildings I select. For example, space now is my idle villager. If I press Q at the top left, I jump to the TC. A is the Archery Range, S the Barracks, and so forth and so on. You get the idea. And now buildings that I use less often, for example, the University, is Control V. So YXZX or YXCV at the bottom, you can see that's used for something else. But if I press Control V, I can still jump to the University. Also something special is that I use the group 5 to select all my town centers. So I have like Q, jump to the town center, but if I'm microing at the front and just want to produce villagers in the back without going back, I press 5 and select all TCs, produce villagers while using E, and everything is good. And now you can see basically everything ASDF or GH till then, and now basically my index finger is taking care of everything super important. WER. Those are my 3 most keys for every building. Now we think about how I produce buildings. This is basically, if I select the villager, I press B for building, and then all of those hotkeys. And as you can now see, there are gaps, right? And the gaps are the selection of the building. So even if I have a villager selected, I can easily press A and jump to my archery range. Now you might think like, oh, Nilly, why didn't you use UI? That was my big change after NAC2. I had ZUY for my mill, lumber camp, and mining camp, and I mispressed it so often that I just changed it to the mouse wheel, and yeah, it's way better since. Still not perfect though. The rest is kind of okay-ish, and you see how my thumb is very quick, like B gate, or like B, the farm icon at the moment, and then the house or the palisade are at E or R. And you can see how it's always the same system, right? Here, the yellow thing was selecting the building, and the green thing, everything else. And now you can see that again for my unit commands. You can see my formations here. You can see patrol is E, ground attack is R, the things that you need very quickly. And my thumb is spamming the formations at the bottom there. And yeah, you can see aggressive and stand ground also at M and N there. And now I will just go through everything else, and you can see the system that I'm using, right? In the town center, you see WE, the things at the top there. And now we get into the barracks. I press S, and then you can see my index finger is producing militia, spearmen, eagle warriors, or condotieros is my thumb. And since there's no civilization that can build eagle warriors and huskarls, I have huskarls and eagle warriors on the same hotkey there. Archery range, we press A, W, produce an archer. AE produces skirm. And that's like a very smooth combination, right? AE, bap, bap. And then, as you can see, hand cannoneer and slinger again on the same hotkey, because Incas don't get hand cannoneers. And now you see the thumb is actually doing something else as well. And now the stable, as you can see, D was the stable hotkey, and that's actually not ideal. If I would redesign everything over again, that's not ideal, because now if I want to produce knights, I press D and E. That's actually a short distance, but I'm using the same finger. You never want to do that, but I won't change it now. I think it's very minimal, but not ideal here. Technically, you want to use two different fingers for the same idea. Like, go to stable, produce knights, should be two different fingers. Not really happening here, but not the worst thing. Then we have H for the siege workshop. And you can see how I'm spreading stuff around there. We have the dog for, yeah, F. And now you see a tiny mistake and a breaking of my rules. G is also the fishing ship and the castle. So if I have a dock and a castle, actually I can't produce fishing ships with the hotkeys, because I press F, go to dock, go to, or build a fishing ship, but then it sends me to the dock. So if I play something with water regicide, I'm actually having a worse fish boom than I'd normally have. Not that important, but yeah, something to think about. And then you basically get the system, right? Monastery, it's the same. It's the same for castle. And yeah, it's just E, the unique, W for the trap, R for the petard, and so forth and so on. So yeah, basically summing it up, you have to like the hotkeys. Try to have them all in the same area. Hotkeys that are less important can be far away. You saw like L or super far away hotkeys were like cannon tower or bomber tower, and that's something you very rarely build. No overlapping commands and lots of trading needed. I know this won't be easy for you, but maybe that's the next step that you need. I'm doing a lot of coaching, and that's simply something I saw people struggling a lot with. Putting up your hotkeys to use them properly. It needs a lot of training. It is hard. Just start an editor and go like, okay, now let's spam some hussars. Let's spam some CA. Let's quickly build a university. Let's jump to the university. Let's click ballistics. And yeah, my big weakness is still that I'm not really properly using the tags. the keyboard, right? I'm now started to do it with like Shift Q, Shift W, but yeah, that's basically my thing I need to improve the most. Maybe you can leave me some tips in the comments, guys. Take care. Goodbye, Hippo lovers.